Hello, everyone. It's been a while. I am excited to get this season started, and we are starting it off with a bang, starting off with the Arnold Classic. So this is going to be my top 5 prediction video of the Arnold Classic. And if you can guess the top 5 right, I got a prize for 10 of you. I do think that everyone's going to get this one. This is not going to be like the Olympia where I give away, what I think it was, 2,500 or 5,000 bucks if you got the top 10 right. This one's going to be, I think, a little bit more predictable than the Olympia. So I'm going to give away a new waist trainer that I've been working on. I'm in my 4th revision of this one. I'm going to be sending it out to, if you get it in the comments, to 10 people, I guess the first 10 people who get it right, the top 5. So go ahead and put those in the comments on YouTube, and I will be sending one out to you. It's a prototype right now and in production pretty soon. So anyway, who is going to be in the top 5? Let's just go ahead and jump into it. I want to do this one backwards. Usually I lead up to number 1. I think this one is a little bit more obvious, and I'm going to go from the top down this time, which is something new. So who do we have as number 1 going into the Arnold? No surprises here. Laura Lee Chapados. That is my guess for who's going to be winning the Arnold Classic. I mean, it is pretty much her show these days. She's won 2 of them. I think she's going to get 3 here. At the Olympia, she came in and she was a little bit heavy in the quads. So when I saw her come out, I was like, man, she looks really muscular, looks really, really muscular, really dense. And those quads, glutes look really overpowering to her physique. And she still did really, really good with it. So here's the thing. That was probably the most muscular, the most off, if you want to say off, she's been. That was probably it, right? So the path for anyone beating her that she beat at the Olympia is going to be pretty slim. So because you have to look at who's going to be next. One, obviously, Issa would have been the biggest challenger to Laura Lee, and Issa, unfortunately, got ill, and we wish her a fast recovery with her appendix. It was just a random thing, and so unfortunate because that would have been a fun battle to watch. But here's the thing: Laura Lee beat Issa and Amy not at her best. So Laura Lee just needs to be a little bit better to just hold that standing. It's going to be a really tough path to beat her if she beat you when she was already not her best. So the odds of her getting dethroned at this one, I think is pretty low. And thinking about it, I was like, wow, there's a lot of room there to catch Laura Lee right now because her quads are overdeveloped. Her glutes are a little bit overdeveloped. Catching her right now would be the time to do it at this Arnold because she still has to make corrections, and it's not enough time to make corrections. If you think about it, the Olympia was just a few months ago. So this is the time to pass her. But I was a little bit wrong on that. I'll say from the pictures that I've been seeing, I think I was a little bit wrong on that. So let's go into Laura Lee's strengths. Her strengths, her glutes, probably the best in the game, but sometimes they're too much. That's the thing. The problem is your glutes can be too good for bikini, where they border on being like kind of bikini wellness crossover right in that middle ground. And she does hit that crossover quite a bit. But in terms of hip width to waist ratio and flow, it's some of the best in the game. Her posing, I think her posing is probably the best in the game or close to it. There's going to be very few arguments for anyone being really close to her in terms of posing. And the judges said at the last Olympia, her posing probably moved her up a couple spots because her stage presence is just so good. I mean, it's different than everyone's routine. Not only was it already the best or close to the best, if not the best, she improved on it at the Olympia, right? Now, when she came out with her new posing routine, I was like, I wonder if they're going to like this or not. I mean, it was so good already. Do you really improve on that? And she gambled with it. She added a couple new things. The judges loved it, and it put her at another higher level. So she's beating her own best when she was already the best in the posing. Going to be really hard to pass her in that department. You got to remember that's a big part of it. Stage presence, beauty, flow, how you're posing, all that stuff matters. And Laura Lee, she pretty much owns that. Now, another strength of hers is her muscularity. She's got a lot of muscle, but it is pretty muscle. It's not overly dense muscle. You hear me talking about dense muscle. It's not overly dense muscle. It's big muscle and sometimes too big, but it's not dense, crazy looking, striated, deep grained muscle, right? It is a pretty flow to her muscle. So that's something that's going to be a positive for her. So her weaknesses are her balance, right? We all know that her glutes overpower her physique from the back. Her quads overpower her upper body a little bit. So can she correct that and win the Arnold? I don't think she really needs to correct that to win the Arnold. She already beat the girls that she's going to be going up against in the Arnold without correcting it. So now this goes down to the Olympia. Can she bring that to the Olympia and bring a smaller, more fine-tuned package? Yeah, absolutely. I think she's got the time to do that. I didn't think she had the time to do that at the Arnold. I really didn't. And then she came and posted a picture the other day. And I saw her legs and I was like, okay, well, actually, I was wrong. Her legs do look more fine-tuned. She did a very good job at listening to judges' feedback and brought her legs in more fine-tuned. This is a recent check-in picture. So her legs are still overpowering. Her glutes are still a little overpowering, but it's not crazy like it was at the Olympia. So she's already doing better. When I saw this picture, I was like, yeah, that's it. There's no one's going to be passing her at this Olympia. She didn't need to be perfect, balanced to go from the Olympia to the Arnold because of the level of competition isn't the same as the Olympia. She just needed to be a little bit better. And even that, she really didn't need to be better at all. She just needed to like look like she put in some effort in. But actually, she could probably show up at the Olympia like this, and this is probably enough. She probably is exactly where they want her right now. So massive corrections on her part. She just needs to show up like this. And this picture was from about a week ago. So she just needs to show up like this and probably will win the Arnold. So I don't think there's any path for anyone to beat her at the Arnold this year. It's going to take her really, really being off. And if this is her 2 weeks ago, I don't see how that happens. I just don't see it. I mean, she could just show up like this and win. So Laura Lee, I think, is a strong favorite. Now, who do we have for number 2? Because there's a lot of things going on at this year's Arnold that are going to be kind of up in the air. And this is why this one's a little tricky, but not overly tricky. So in number 2 position, I have Amy Delgado, Las Vegas girl, always rooting for the Las Vegas girls. I love Amy. She's a sweet girl, and she's really passionate about this. And I think that she's got a huge, huge future. I don't think anyone doesn't believe she's got a huge future in this. So always rooting for Amy. Now, the thing I have been hard on Amy about is her quads. They are a little bit dense. Okay. They're confusing quads because she's shorter. So they're rounder and more bubbly. If you look at some of the shorter girls, you look at like an Ashlyn, really round, really full quads, which sometimes will give off the appearance as being too big. And sometimes I do think they're too big. When she fills out 100%, her a couple years ago when I saw her first at check-ins, I was like, man, if you just got that girl and put her in wellness and really gave her a year to build into it, she's like made for it because her quads just looked like that when I first saw her, very first time. And then when I saw her on stage, I'm like, no, she's kind of like that. She's just shorter, rounder, more bubbly, does have full legs, a little bit too much quad. You just got to fine tune her. Now, as she's tapered her legs down, her quads have come down. They're not overly big anymore, but they are still really, really dense. So what's the difference of density and full round pretty muscles? So the way I've come up with now is if you look at someone and you look at their quads and it looks kind of like steak, right? That's a dense quad. If you can see that, and it kind of looks like a steak where you see the grain of the muscle, the grain of the meat, right? Versus if you look at like a water balloon and you filled it up with water and it's round and full, they're still the same size. They're still both the same size, but one looks full round and pretty. One looks a little grainy and dry and striated, right? That's the difference of like the fullness and the density. And she's just a little bit dense in the quads. She can striate in the hamstrings too. So here's some of her strengths. She's got great glutes. Tie-ins are pretty. They're not etched tie-ins. They're just nice, round, full glutes, almond-shaped glutes without that full, crazy, detailed tie-in that they don't want to see, that edge tie-in. Good stage presence, great clavicle width, great muscularity that sometimes borders on too much muscularity. So that's the only thing she's got. She walks that line. There's a couple of these girls in the Arnold that really walk that line. Her weaknesses are her density of her quads, which we've all gone over. Her waistline can fluctuate. I have seen that with her waistline fluctuating. I don't know if it's just how she's taking in her carbs. Sometimes I do see that her upper waistline looks like it's still like digesting food. I don't know if it's day of show food. I don't know if it's water consumption day of show. I don't know what it could be. There's a lot of things that you can do to fill someone out and not have them have their waistline a little bit wider, but I will see that fluctuate at times. So which one will we see? Will it be enough to pass Laura Lee if she nails it 100%? I think the only path for Amy to beat Laura Lee at this show is if she is absolutely 100%. Her quads don't look overly dense. And at the same time, Laura Lee has to be off for that to happen. And she has to be off by a pretty big margin. Based on the pictures I've been seeing lately, I don't see that path. I don't see it right now. But the clear number 2 favorite is going to be Amy, looking really, really good. Just got to be careful. Got to be careful with that waistline blowing out, with filling out too much in the carbs. Got to be careful with those quads looking too dense. Got to be careful with how hard you're hitting your front poses and your walk when your legs are striding, when you're walking out, when you're hitting that front pose. Got to be careful with how hard you're pushing in the back because sometimes her hamstrings separate a little bit much too, making her legs look really, really detailed from the front and the back. So Now going into our third place. So third place is going to be a tough one because there's a lot of killers at this show, right? You have Angelica, who's a dark horse. You have Tamikia, who's doing really good. You have Vanya, who got top 15 at the Olympia. You have Ivana, who's fluctuates in her placings, but is still really good. You have Phoebe, who could easily be in the top 3, right? So who do I got in the top 3 at this year's Arnold Classic? Well, top 3, I have Angelica Teixeira. Why do I have Angelica Teixeira in there? Well, Angelica is a killer, right? I don't think Angelica is showing up to the Arnold not knowing that she's competitive. Like, I don't think she would do that. She's, these girls who win these Olympias and win these huge titles, I think people underestimate them, maybe because they're bikini and it's not bodybuilding and it's not like the same mentality. You see a bodybuilder like, I'm there to kill it. I'm there to kill it. No one's going to beat me. It's a different attitude, right? And bikini girls are like, oh, well, it's anyone's day and anyone can win. It's like it's a different thing, right? But the girls that are actually winning and actually doing these big shows are absolute killers. Like, this is what they think about. They know the sport. They study it. They're super competitive, though it may not look like they're super competitive. But these girls, I know pretty much most of them that have at that level and their mentality and their mindset, they don't go to these shows thinking, oh, I'm not competitive. So I think there's zero doubt Angelica is coming into this show saying, oh, I'm just going to try to do my best and have fun. That's not a killer's attitude, right? She's an absolute shark. She's won 2 Olympias. She's won 2 Arnolds. Who knows how many other titles? She is an absolute killer. So she made an assessment, a self-assessment, and said, you know what? I'm ready to compete. I'm going there. I'm going to be competitive. I'm not just there to show up. And looking at the pictures that I've seen of her, which here's a problem. I haven't seen really good pictures of her. I don't know how good she really is. Is she as good as when she left? Her last show was if I'm correct, was 2020 at the Olympia, where she got 4th place. Now, Angelica has always had a really good physique that at times was too advanced for the current bikini standard, right? So if you look back, even when she was at her first Olympia, she even had tie-ins back then. She didn't have crazy deep tie-ins like they want now, but she had tie-ins even back then. So her meeting the standard of today's bikini really isn't going to be that hard. She's always had tie-ins. Even when they weren't specifically looking for tie-ins, she had tie-ins. She's always had good shape. She never had a problem reaching conditioning levels. And the thing about Angelica, and people never really understood, some people didn't understand why Angelica would do so good. And she's kind of the one that kind of coined the phrase for me, is that Angelica, the good thing about Angelica is that she's good from everywhere and not great from anywhere, right? And that is an absolute compliment in bikini. You want to be good from everywhere, but not great from anywhere. Laura Lee, good from everywhere, but great from the glutes, right? What do you talk about when you see Laura Lee? You're like, her glutes are great. Why is anything standing out? That shouldn't be happening in bikini. You shouldn't be getting awarded for something standing out in bikini. If you're looking at someone, you say, hey, she's got the best whatever in bikini, shoulders, well, it's probably too much because it stands out. You can't look at Angelica and say she's great anywhere. She's not the best at the shoulder. She's not the best at the glutes. She's not the best at the waistline. She's just perfectly balanced head to toe. And that's what makes her very, very great in bikini, is that she's good everywhere, right? And that's what you want to look for in bikini. You don't want these impressive Instagram bodies in bikini. You want balance, you want flow, you want everything that they're looking for, that hourglass shape. So Angelica has it. She's been on that stage before. She's not going to be nervous at all. There is no question in my mind she's going to be nervous. She might have some stage rust, right? She might have some of that ring rust because she hasn't been on stage in a while, but nerves aren't going to be a huge factor for her. You got to remember, she's been in the Olympia. She's won it twice. She's won the Arnold twice. She's been under the big lights. She's been interviewed by Arnold Schwarzenegger. She has all that. It is a normal, it's still, getting back up there, but it's a normal day for Angelica, right? So some of these other people that it's their first Arnold's, they're not going to have that same thing. This is a very powerful show. It makes a lot of people nervous. So the thing about Angelica too, is she has pretty muscle. Now here's the thing. Does Angelica still have pretty muscle? That's the question, right? It's been 4 years since we've seen her. Is that muscle now more dense? Is her waistline changed? She's had 2 kids. Is her waistline significantly changed, or is it back to the same? Some women have kids. You can't even tell they had kids. Janet won Olympia. She's had kids. Amy has kids. She looks great. Nothing shows on her waistline. So is Angelica coming back and there's no effect on her whatsoever, on her waistline, on the density of her muscle? Is there going to be any effect whatsoever? Is it just the time off? Now she's getting, it's more dense muscle than it was before. Has the skin thickness changed and there's more density? I don't know. We haven't seen her. We don't have any real data on her, which makes her kind of a dark horse, right? We don't know. Is she going to come back and just shock the world and it's going to be a top 2 showdown like it was between her and Laura Lee in 2018? Right? Was it 18 or 19? 18. So is that what's going to happen with her? That would shock the whole world, but it's not out of the question, right? Is it out of the question that she's completely out of the top 5 and her physique has totally changed? Yeah, that's not out of the question either. We don't have the data from her yet. We don't know. So very exciting to see her back. She could be as, low as 8th and as high as 1st. Who knows? This is going to be a very interesting one to see. I still think, based on what I've seen, which is not much. I mean, look at the picture I'm using here. Is not much. I think that she's going to be in that 3rd spot. I do. I think that's where she'll end up. Just because I know how competitors are, I know how these really high level athletes are. I don't think she's showing up to the Arnold not being super, super competitive. So let's go ahead and go into our 4th place here, and who I think is going to be 4th place, which is, I think, is going to shock quite a few of you. And I have in 4th place Tamikia Carter, right? That's who I have right now. Now, there's going to be some variances on this, on her getting 4th place. Now, she was top 15 at the Olympia. You got to remember too, Vanya was also there at the Olympia getting a 12th place. So this is going to be a interesting placing for her, me having her moving up. So I love Tamikia's look. All right. She's got a really good look. Now here's the strengths of Tamikia. Great shoulder width, crazy good glute tie-ins. The tie-ins are pretty low on her. They're getting pretty deep. And sometimes when your tie-ins get really, really low and deep, they tend not to place as well. She does walk a fine line of being a little bit too much in the muscle, right? Just because her clavicle width is really wide, her leg density is there. It's right on the border. Everything on her is like right on the border, like she's riding it. And there's days where I could see her and she's too much. There's days where she looks perfectly round and full for bikini. So her fullness, density kind of balance that she needs to walk is a fine line. And if she nails it, I do think that she could be a 4th place. Now, it's not going to be an easy path for her. There's a lot of girls fighting for that 4th place. In the 4th place spot I have fighting for, just that 4th place spot, I have her, I have Vanya, I have Phoebe, I have Ivana, and I have Ellie, all fighting for those 4th and 5th spots. I think it's going to be a real battle between 4th and 5th. I think the real battle on this one does happen between that 4th and 5th spot. Now, I have her right now as 4th place, but I could easily see Phoebe taking that 4th place spot. So looking at where she's at, what does she need to do? I think she just needs to make sure that she's not looking overly dense. She's looking good in her fullness. She's not pushing too hard in her back pose, because her back pose, her tie-ins can get a little bit deep, a little bit etched, and her hamstrings can get a little bit separated. So it's just something she has to watch for, and watch how big she's posing. How big are you posing your arms? She poses bigger than she needs to pose. She doesn't need to pose big. She's already big. So she needs to pose for flow, pose for an hourglass, and just kind of fine tune that whole thing. And that's where she's at this stage. She's getting to that top level. I mean, I guess she is in the top level. If she's top 15, she's top level of the world. Now it's just, what do I need to do to just climb and inch my way up that ladder? And I can easily see her in the top 10 at the Olympia if she starts making these little fine-tuned, highly calibrated adjustments. And I think her going to the Arnold, I'm sure she's made some. So I'm thinking that's potentially 4th place for her. Now, going into 5th place, I have Phoebe Hagen. Now, why do I not have Phoebe Hagen in a higher position yet? Well, remember, this is just a higher position yet. Phoebe is almost there. And this is the thing. I think if she hits her conditioning, she will be easily, well, I think honestly kind of easily, 4th place, maybe even 3rd place, depending on how Angelica looks. Getting past Amy and Laura Lee, I think, is going to be a real challenge. I think that they're going to have to be a little bit off for her right now. And Phoebe, it just comes down to her conditioning. So looking at Phoebe from the front and her conditioning, and this is what the good thing about Phoebe, obviously I coach her, and we have a recent picture for you guys to see, a check-in update. So this is her from the front right now versus her when she got 7th place at the Olympia. Now, from the front, she's significantly better than the Olympia. Her legs are a little bit fuller. They're a little rounder, but it's not dense muscle. And that's the thing about Phoebe. She's got really round, pretty muscle. That's the thing we like to see about Phoebe is it's one of the best, honestly, it's one of the best structures in bikini right now. I have a hard time finding a better structure in bikini. Shoulder width, small waistline, great flow, pretty full round muscles, great skin, like everything on her flows really, really well. with her, that's going to be one of her strengths. It's honestly one of the better physiques in terms of the structure in the entire sport right now. Full pretty muscle, glutes are nice glute width, great tie-ins, right? What's Phoebe's weaknesses? She's got two big weaknesses. One of them is going to be her consistency of her conditioning. And that is the reason why I have her in 5th right now and not in 4th or even 3rd. If she was in the condition at the Olympia of 2022, I would say she's probably going to be 3rd place right now, but she's just a little bit off. So she's not a lot off. She's just a tiny bit off right now. Can she catch up in time for the Arnold? Now the Arnold UK follows the Arnold Ohio. I think absolutely she could be 100% because she's inches away from that. Now, looking at her current conditioning from the back, if you look at her now versus the Olympia 2022, it is just a little bit more to go for her. So she's working really, really hard right now. This prep was a hard prep for her. She had a lot of weight to lose in a 10-week period, about close to 20 pounds. She is almost where she needs to be at this point. So if she can pull in this last little bit, maybe 2 pounds, and then at the same time, reduce all the water retention from the hard work that she's doing, because to get those 20 pounds off, you got to work really, really hard in a short period of time, and you build up water retention, inflammation, the muscles are sore. You need a rested physique to show really on stage, to shine well on stage. You need that rested physique where it's, everything's tapered down. You're not having a crazy hard peak week. You're letting your body relax and everything just looks like it flows. Like it's like, oh, it's just another day at the beach. It's like a nice, healthy, unstressed muscle, right? So that's the difference. Can she get that lean and also show that level of flow and just the body being, the inflammation being down and the skin being tight on the muscles? Because the thing about Phoebe and the thing that does hurt her is that they do like her really tight. Some girls, they like a little fuller, a little rounder. You can look at Jennifer, you can look at Laura Lee, you can look at even Maureen. They're a rounder, softer, a little fuller girl. They have a little bit more body fat than if you look at a Phoebe, for example, when she got 7th. Phoebe has to come in pretty shredded. So that works against her with how she does her off seasons, unfortunately, where she has to lose a lot to get ready for shows. So her whole thing is, if she can get in stage shape, in actual Olympia shape of 2022 by the Arnold, and reduce all that inflammation at the same time, can she move up to 3rd? I think definitely. Can she move up to 2nd? I think that would be pretty tough. But structurally and density wise, she's right there. So it wouldn't be out of the question to even see her as high as 2nd if it comes there. Now, the other thing is, it wouldn't be out of the question if she shows up, and that hasn't happened yet, to have her as low as 8th, right? It really comes down to these last 2 weeks for her. And that's why right now I have her as 5th. But I saw her this morning, and she's looking even tighter. So now it just comes down to, okay, will the body respond when she eases off during peak week, when she reduces her cardio and starts carbing up? Will the body respond in time for that? And that's yet to be determined. But if she does, warning for 3rd place and 4th place spots, it's going to be tough to get past her if she does. So that's just what it comes down to. Now, how hard is that fifth place spot going to be? It is going to be hard, right? 4th and 5th place is going to be an absolute, it's going to be really tough, right? Because you have to get past these 3, right? All 3 of these girls have been top 15 at the Olympia. Absolute killers in this show. So we have here Ivana, Ellie Fernandez, and Vanya. So what do they need to do to move up? Vanya just needs to show up, honestly, pretty similar to this. When I first started seeing Vanya on the scene, her quads looked a little bit too much. They're a little bit overpowering. She's really fine-tuned over the last 2 years and has gotten her quads down. The Olympia, she nailed it. If she can nail her Olympia look again, then I think that her getting 5th place at this show, maybe even 4th, is super realistic. Now, Ivana is a whole nother thing, right? Ivana has just such pretty flow, pretty muscle, gorgeous girl, just everything about her stage presence, everything is great. The problem is that she comes in really dense, really shredded sometimes, and sometimes her shoulders are a bit too much. So for her, it's about finding that balance. Her having that nice flow without being overly dense, without being overly muscular. If she finds that balance, she could absolutely be as high as 4th place. So someone to watch out for, Ivana from Spain. Now we have Ellie from Mexico. Ellie, I think people don't really, I think because she's not as popular of an athlete, they kind of forget how good she is, but she's an absolute killer. I think that she needs to be on everyone's radar a little bit more, because she has been I think she's gotten as high as top 10 at the Olympia. I know she's been top 15 at least once. I should have should have researched that before I did this video. I swear I know she's getting at least top 10, but she's won many shows. She's been around for a long time, been many Arnold Classics. And if she brings in the right shape, the right conditioning, again, with the quads not being overly dense, she could be an absolute killer in this show. She does bring a really, really tight package. All three of these girls were really, if you look at Tamikia, Phoebe, Ivana, Vanya, and Ellie, I mean, it is a shredded, I mean, even Amy, it is a shredded Arnold, right? It's a different look than the Olympia when you have things to balance it out. If you look at the top, let's say you look at the top 5 at the Olympia, it is not as shredded as you're going to see the top 5 at the top 7 as this year's Arnold, right? Different structures and different athletes have different looks that the judges are looking for. So it is going to be a real throwdown. You know, your guess is as good as mine. The first and second, I think are going to be pretty clear. But 3rd through 7th, man, that's going to be a crazy battle. I think the real battle is 4th and 5th, actually. So who's going to get it? Put it in the comments of who you think is going to get it. 1 through 5, I will send a waist trainer, the new waist trainer that I've been working on for a while now, to the first 10 that comment. As always, Adam, teamelitephysique.com for worldwide online contest prep. You can tell I'm a little rusty at this. I haven't been doing these for a while, but now that the season started, I'm going to start doing these reviews again. I'm very, very excited for this season. Get me to a show, guys. I'm excited for it. I will talk to you later.